Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to Down the Donut Hole podcast. And today we're kind of tired out because we took a little hike. And what did we figure out it was? Like 2.5 miles?
Yep. Downhill, and then back uphill.
Carrying some heavy stuff, too, on the way back up.
Oh, yeah. Well, also carrying some heavy stuff on the way down. And I'm not ashamed to talk about this.
It was
I know
heavier
you would
coming back, though. You know,
well, it was heavier.
We went to the little shop on our way back up.
Well,
and I think that the culprit really was at least a good, significant contributor to it was the wine.
Yes. Do you think I'm going to go down to the store and not come back with wine? Are you really thinking that?
You would ruin your reputation.
I'm sitting in the middle of a vineyard.
You would ruin your reputation if you did come back with no wine.
I know. I'm not willing to take that chance. I mean, a person has to protect their image, right?
Yeah, you worked hard over many, many years to develop that reputation. So
I sure did. And I'm not done yet.
No, I know.
It's an ongoing thing. You know, you can't let that stuff slide.
Anyway, we thought maybe we'd get up early, and it's the best time to start out, usually on hike, walk, / whatever.
Well, we were going to yesterday, but it was so hot that we decided that we would wait until today because the weather forecast looked a little better.
That's right, and it was.
But much still, better. What a great call.
Getting up early, and you think like...
not for me. I always get up early.
Not feeling it. Yeah, you do, but you don't take a hike every day. I'm just saying, pointing out that the thing that we've probably mentioned before, that whole phenomenon of, not wanting to exercise, and you're coming up, your body's coming up with all these excuses not to do it.
Yes.
But what's weird, because your body should have learned by now that it's good for you and that you feel better afterwards, but you still have that hurdle to overcome somehow. I don't quite understand it.
Well, it's all those endorphins, especially if you are carrying heavy things or it's a little bit out of your comfort zone, then it's important. And with us having no car, we do a fair bit of hauling. I'm just going to say that not all of it is lovely. We take recycling in big bags to the big recycling center. And so all kinds of stuff like that you wind up having to do if you don't have a car. So
yeah, but I do like one of your catchphrases, and that is, some people go to the gym.
Yeah, I always say that, especially if people look at you and you're laden down with big bags of
that costs you
recycling. Money. Right. We don't need to go to the gym. But with all of that, I think that it's easy to make it sound like, oh, hey, it's just great. It's always great if you don't have a car. But there's an awful lot of logistical problems if you don't have a car. And that's more true in the United States than it is here. I'm just going to say, because they have a lot of public transport. For us, from our location here, it's a bit of a schlep to get to like the bus. But once you get there, you are just golden. You can go everywhere. From, the place that we pick up the bus is a very rural bus stop. And yet you can go all over France from there. Once you get on that bus, then, it's fairly easy to get around everywhere. It's the between here and there because, again, this is a very rural area. And I say these things because those are important factors. I mean, like us going down to the store. I mean, I didn't come back with anything major. You have to hustle if you're carrying ice cream. You just have to be ready and understand you're going to bring one of your little freezer bags and you're going to step it up on the way back, no matter what you're carrying.
Isn't that the antithesis of walking, getting ice cream? Did it cancel out the benefits of the walk? I don't know.
Well, we're not going to sit there and eat it all in one go. We're going to have that for judicial desserts.
You better hide it then from me.
I will. I will be the ice cream guard. Absolutely. If we're carting that up the hill, you're not going to sit there and pig out on it. So, see, it's hard.
Anyway, it did happen again. We came back, and I just felt so good. It's like, oh, I'm so glad I did that.
All the endorphins.
Why is the body so dumb and it forgets about that every single time?
It's the truth. And that, like I say, that's no joke, that hike back up the mountain. but choosing the time of day that you do it. Now, for me, evening, even though it would tend to be cooler, that's not my best time of day, mostly because I get supper, then I clear up after supper, and I'm up early in the morning because that's when I do a lot of my research. And so I'm at the computer very early in the morning with my cup of coffee, and that's I'm awake anyway, and if I allow myself to just lie there, then my mind kind of tends to go toward my problems. And meditation aside, I'm only so good at being able to push thoughts that are disturbing that I really can't do anything about at this time, or things that I need to do that are on my list of things that I prefer not to have to do. I think that's how it works for a lot of people. And so I find for me that I need to limit the time that I'm just lying there in the morning usually, and just get up and do something productive. And I absolutely love, especially when I'm here, to go outside and sit with that cup of coffee if I can. If I'm on computer, I can't because it's just too bright outside at every hour for my machine. But to sit there and kind of watch the mist rise up, and just listen to the birds, and it is so immensely pleasurable. And it costs me nothing. I have my cup of coffee that I made right at home. I didn't have to go to any of the big coffee chains or anything like that to get it. And it suits me. It's what I like, and it's a small pleasure, in the grand scheme of things. But it's so important to me.
Doing what we're doing right now, we're sitting, and then we've got recording stuff we do and writing and all that stuff, and that's not physical exercise, so it is good to get up and do that.
Yes,
regularly.
I have to ask you something. When we were coming back up the mountain, I know we had heavy stuff with us, and we were doing great. We made that walk. What is it, about 1.5 miles or something?
Well, it usually takes us about 15 minutes, but it was only about just under 20 minutes, I think, even with the heavy stuff. So I was pretty proud of that.
Yeah, I was proud of that too. However, did you feel like an old slug when those bikers passed us? Now, we're talking a steep mountain, and those guys just motored right up, on their bikes.
You could tell they were really straining, though. At least we put out we were sort of, rightfully so, sort of a little bit
winded.
Not terribly. But we managed a better bonjour than they did. They were out of breath, and they just went, bonjour.
Yeah, but they were. So, I think it's because we were in their way.
No, not that.
They wanted to get around us, and there was a blind curve.
No, my point is that was very, very brief and very sort of blurted out, as if you were doing it in between breaths, kind of thing. Is my point.
Well, they were at least as old as us, maybe older.
No,
all
really?
Of them, yes.
Wow.
And they left us in the dust, I have to tell you.
Well, yeah, they're on bikes.
Yeah, I know, but I'm thinking, here they are powering up the mountain on a bike. I would hate that.
That's great, though.
It's great for them, but I would not like that. That just seems like work. Like really.
I mean, like older folks doing stuff like that still.
Yeah, it is. It's good. And you see a lot of people here doing it. And, good on them. Good on them. But again, why I like to say, when you choose to give up your vehicle, there are a lot of little logistical things like taking back the recycling because they don't come get that. Or even garbage. There was a long period of time here we didn't have any plan for any of the garbage services to come and collect the garbage. So you pack it up and you have to take it all the way down to where there's a camping or a visitor's parking lot. And they have a few bins there that you have to put it in. But it's your responsibility to haul it down there and make sure it isn't leaking on you and that the bags go into those bins.
Yeah.
And that's not a short walk. So you're enjoying your garbage up close and personal the whole way.
You can get an official bin, but we're really not here long enough for that. And,
that's right. That's right.
So that's...
And plus, you got to go to the store anyway. You might as well just make the big loop, make it all count. And so that takes a little bit of planning.
Or a poo bell, as they call it.
Yeah. A poo bell. Now, I can't decide whether I think that sounds better than garbage bin or garbage can. A poo bell. Anything that has the word bell in it.
It's supposed to be nice and beautiful.
Yeah.
But then you have poo, so...
Yeah, but how do you spell it?
Sort of...
Is it P-E-U?
P-O-U.
P-O-U.
Yep.
Poo bell. Okay. Now you know another word of French.
Yeah.
Poo bell. So I think poo bells are important to know that word, and of course the word for bathroom. So the toilette.
Yeah, that's fancier.
Better too. Yeah, that sounds much better, and so does poo bell. I got to give it to him. So poo bell and toilette. Very nice. Very nice. Anyway,
I don't know if we'll put that in the description. Probably not.
In case people want to learn two important words of French, I don't think they would think that garbage and toilet was the ones that they were searching for. But everybody needs to know about that. Nobody gets to escape one way or the other. I just wanted to say, I keep looking at that image that's over the main doors of St. Fulcrum's Cathedral in Lodève. And the research I had done said that one of the images, they're beautiful sculptures, really nice, in that one of them represented the Archangel Michael. Well, that bothered me because I thought I didn't see angel wings.
So you're doing an errata?
Yeah, an errata. Anyway, it
didn't make sense to me either yesterday because I think, why would an archangel? I mean, a saint is got to be below the rank of archangel. I'm just guessing.
Yeah, well, that kind of bothered me too, and I had found that on Wiki because I couldn't find anything that described it in any of the literature that they had at the church itself. And I did get a little brochure in English, but it was not, it left a lot to be desired. And it did not mention those sculptures over the door. But what was cool is I got a better picture. I kind of went through the pictures that I had and I found a better picture. And the issue is each of those sculptures, each of the representations, there's Jesus Christ in the center, and that's unmistakable. Then if facing this panorama above the door, on the left side there are two beings with halos, and that one of those is what they said was Michael the Archangel, unless Wiki has it mixed up and answered a different question than what I asked, because I was specifically asking about those sculptures which are over the main front entrance. As you come up, there's like a street that goes there, and it's right there. Anyway, so I didn't see any wings, and certainly any angel representation in art, especially of that period, would have wings, and I didn't see any. And so I studied it a little bit more, and I'm still not satisfied. So I thought it was Florin, probably, we said Geniaz was one of them, and I wasn't sure. And the more I looked, the halos have carving in it that has the name of the saint that it represents, but they're really worn. But yesterday, well, actually, it was last night.
We can go in there and write your name in. Nobody will know the difference.
That is the craziest idea I ever heard. Anyway, where was I? You wrecked my train of thought. Oh, anyway, one of the halos, it said Georgius, and that was not any of the ones that I had noticed before. And so I looked and I thought, well, if it was St. George, there would be a dragon. And you know what? There is a dragon.
Oh, you figured it out.
No,
wow.
I saw this little dragon. And so if you can imagine that it is arched, the panorama, I'm calling it, is sort of pointed in the center over where the Christ is standing as the centerpiece of this piece of art. And then there's 3 figures on the left. One figure does not have a halo. I don't know who that represents, but is carrying it looks like a palm frond in one of its hands. And then on the other side, I finally could pull up the
dragon
halo. No, I'm telling you.
Oh.
And then it said St. Georgius in the halo, and then the other one is very worn too, and so I'm not 100% on who that is, but I'm going to stay on this quest because it's very intriguing to me. Anyway, underneath what would be the floor, the platform upon which all of these human sculptures, human-shaped sculptures are standing on, or kneeling in some cases, underneath there, it's kind of hidden, and he's folded up into a little crouch, is a little dragon. And I stood there the day I did not see that dragon. I've been there a few times. I have never noticed that.
Cute little dragon.
Well, it is kind of cute, but usually dragons represent in art like that which is untamable, or that which is dangerous to the well-being of people, or that which is usually has to do with greeds or lusts of some sort. And that's the image of St. George slaying that dragon and making things safe for the populace.
Do we know what his personal dragon was by any chance?
No, but we all have our personal dragons. We do. And psychologists say that if you have something that bothers you a lot, if you find yourself kind of feeling maybe jealous of people that you know who seem to have the world all under control and everything's going well for them, and you sometimes feel like your life is just a mess and that you don't have a good handle on things, and it makes you feel kind of jealous to be around them, and you recognize that in yourself, you could pick out a name for that feeling and call that your dragon, and your job is to keep that dragon locked in your mental dungeon. And that takes work. You can't feed your dragon. Basically, you want your dragon to go to sleep and stay asleep. Or, obviously the idea would be for you to slay your dragon, but most of the dragons come back to life.
One of those movie sort of really friendly ones.
Those cute ones? Well,
yeah.
that one kind of has a face that looks like he's trying to be mean, but because of the size of it, I didn't find it that way. It didn't come across that way to me, but that could be just my own weirdnesses. But seeing that then last night, it was really kind of delightful. So I absolutely have to get these pictures up. And I need time to sit down and do some voiceovers and kind of explain what people are seeing. But I've been holding off on that particular one because I am hoping that I can find out information about who each of those saints are definitively. And I haven't been able to get that information to my degree of comfort. So before I put that out, I want to make sure that I got it. So anyway, stay tuned. I'll keep after that. And for me, it's kind of a personal quest. In finding that little dragon, that was kind of cool because it was late last night and I was pretty tired. And, it just all
Were
of
you
a
so
sudden
tired that you doubted maybe you just made it up?
No, not at all.
Okay.
I can show you the picture. I will. I'll show you the picture. You can be on my team, and I'll sick you on the tracking down who those saints are too. I'm not sure why there wouldn't be easier information. Why it wouldn't be more readily available, because really and truly, the building from the outside, the Cathedral of St. Fulcrin in Lodève in the south of France, isn't what I would say knock your socks off appealing. It's it's scruffy and it's very angular, and some of them are so fanciful and so over the top that you just stare at them and think, wow, how did somebody come up with all of this, and how much work this must have taken. This is kind of a straightforward exterior of the cathedral, Gothic in style, and I'm not criticizing it. I like it. It suits where it is, that style. But definitely, as you enter there, that sculpture, that panoramic sculpture over the door is one of the first things that you see, the first artistic representations that grabs you. And I just haven't been able to get a definitive answer to who do those represent. So 4 saints, Jesus Christ, and a 5th character, plus the little dragon crouching underneath the floor, I'll call it. It's very cool. So I'm going to keep on that anyway, and I will get something up. But I'm going to probably wait until I have, better information. And so I'm on it. I like quests like that. We were joking when we were down at the chapel of the cave. I said, well, we need to channel like Nancy Drew. And I know for you, it was the Hardy Boys. And I think we have that in common, where it's just, as a kid, wasn't that wonderful?
Yeah, it was one of my favorite things to do on the weekend, especially get a Hardy Boys book. Unfortunately, they were really short.
Yeah.
They were really small. And if there was I did actually one time, there was some time period where the next Hardy Boys book was going to be released, but it was some weeks away or whatever. So I thought, oh, what the heck? I'll try Nancy Drew. I won't tell anybody. But I just didn't. It didn't click with me like the Hardy Boys. It had nothing to do with gender, really. I just didn't think the story was as good.
Well, I'll tell you, the Hardy Boys was a big deal with our kids. We used to, when we'd go camping or something, we'd get in our sleeping bags, and we always had a stack of Hardy Boys books to take with us.
Some of them were my original ones.
Yeah.
When I was a young boy.
Which we shouldn't have taken camping.
Very, very favorite one of all that we've heard a billion times, but you just can't get enough of it. Do you remember The Mystery
of Devil's Paw?
That's right. That's the one.
Well, we have introduced that now to our grandkids.
Alaska, in the deep Alaskan woods to solve a mystery. And I thought, oh, this has got travel, new places that sound amazing and intriguing. And it remains my favorite one.
Would you say that influenced you to want to travel when you were a kid?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, anything. It was not just that. Anything that, magazines back then. Of course, the internet was magazines, basically.
Yeah.
And
yep.
That's how it started. That's all we had.
Yeah.
And, getting stuff by the mail to be delivered to you in the back of these magazines, that was your catalog of stuff you could get sent to you, usually 4 or 5 weeks out.
Yeah.
None of this next day or the second day thing.
No. You know what? That's the thing. I do remember that. Sometimes you get really impatient for something that you've ordered to arrive. And especially, you'll see those notations where people are off on vacation or something, and they put up a note that if you order this item, it won't be delivered or it won't be sent out until X date. And you think, oh boy, that seems like a long way away. But if you remember when we were kids, you waited for everything.
Oh, weeks, yeah. It was weeks.
There was nothing that was just overnight or the next day. And it's the same with the air travel. And I think I said that on one of those episodes that we did from the airport. As far as I'm concerned, every now and then I need to pinch myself when I'm getting impatient with all that. I think, hey, sweetie, you remember when that was not the way it was. And for people just to be able to
you get impatient and you get nervous and kind of crabby. But that's the whole problem with everybody expecting instant gratification.
Oh, I know.
Seems to be a general problem, really.
No. The internet is a wonderful thing. And I'm not taking anything away from it. That's definitely a tool that I've been using with the research for some of these places that we go so that I can find out more information to share. And that beats everybody having to go do their own quest, on that. And I do enjoy doing it. But it isn't flawless. witness this thing that I looked up in Wiki.
No, it's not. I mean, there's a lot up there, but a lot of times you're trying to search something. I was today that actually was researching something and kept getting, no, that's not what I want. That's not what I want. So if you really are wanting to narrow a subject down, still isn't all that great.
No. And people do have to exercise a lot of cautions with the internet, and I think that's becoming more
that
true.
That was what we were talking about.
More true.
Oh, that's something different.
More true, I think.
Speaking of that, back in the old days, as long as our head's back there, we didn't have the internet, and TV and radio was a thing, but when you live way out in the middle of nowhere, like we did when I was young, you can't get any of that either.
Mm-mm.
So what we had was the outdoors, and every day exercising, doing stuff, not a routine, just running around and doing kid stuff.
Finding things.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
I used to like looking for pretty stones, and it sounds very lame, I guess, compared to what the kids do.
Girl stuff.
These days. But I think in many ways that was good for us. I mean, you have to use your imagination. You're getting fresh air. We really do need to limit screen time for the kids. I think we've gone through the curve far enough now. I saw that in New York State, the Attorney General is now really putting some pressure on Meta, that they need to do a better job of making sure that they're not putting up advertising for scammy investments. And apparently it's just rampant. And a lot of those scammy places are using the likenesses of respected investors and financiers and people who are advisors for financial things.
See a lot of that on YouTube too, those pop up, long form sort of pitches for stuff. And
Be
all of it
careful.
seems kind of scammy, some of it.
You know what? I think absolutely do not follow up on any of that online until you have verified who those companies are, who's really running them, and don't do it online. Go to the Better Business Bureau, find out where their center is, but figure that out without letting the internet be the verifier of that stuff, because lots of really smart people, good investors, have gotten stung badly by those. There was one, Letitia James, the AG for New York State, was mentioning that in some of those ads, they used the likeness of Warren Buffett. And there are those pump and dump schemes where you're supposed to grab these fantastic deals that are happening now, and then all of a sudden they dump out of it or whatever, and you've lost a whole bunch of money. And so just be really, really careful with those. And I just think, having to do things the old-fashioned way. And I think that's the connector between us hauling stuff up and down the mountain by hand, and how we're reminiscing about how it was when we were a kid, when you had to kind of do the slow way to get whatever it was you wanted. There's some validity to that even yet. And I think as far as the kids are concerned, limit that screen time and know who and what they're doing online. I'm really, the more I see of these virtual worlds, those are absolutely fraught with all kinds of what would be criminal offenses in the actual world. And it goes on nonstop. And I read an article last night that was saying that for girls and women, the avatars, of course they're using avatars in these virtual worlds, but there's all kinds of crimes against these female characters. And
how do you know all this? Are you?
I read, Dave.
Oh.
I read.
Or maybe that was what you were doing on your tablet late at night.
No, I was looking up saints. Couldn't be further.
Right. Okay. It's a good cover, though.
Anyway, but those things, I think, I don't think we need to abandon the old-fashioned ways.
What was one of the
altogether.
early ones? Grand Theft Auto. I mean, that's pretty clear.
That's right. Were you good at those? I bet you did.
No. Pac-Man, I thought that was cool. That was it, though. That's where it ended.
I think when I first met you, didn't you have some game that we played that you had to go find treasure? It was a computer game. I wasn't
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, you had to go.
Really early ones that saw 8-bit graphics and stuff.
Yeah, way back when.
I followed the rise of computers from calculators, basically, but I never was really a gamer.
No. Our kids are. There's quite a difference in age between our first son and our second son. There's like a 10-year gap there. And they both enjoyed the video games. And so judiciously allowing those boys to play was very good because it took that gap. It closed that gap. And my eldest son said one day to me, the younger one was watching. I think I probably told this story before. But the younger one was sitting there watching while the older one and his cousin, same age, was playing a video game. And I came by and I said, hey, you guys, let the little guys play. And they looked at me like I had 3 heads and told me, they're learning. We're teaching them. They have to watch. And my son said to me, and it just really, I've never forgotten it. He said, Mom, he goes, the best day of a gamer's life is when his little brother beats him at the game because it means you did your job. And I thought, what? And that's exactly how they feel. And now the 2 younger brothers that were sitting there watching are very good gamers. And all of those guys, they live all over the place in the United States. They're separated geographically. But they get online regularly and they go play their games and they're a team. And they know each other so well because they went through that curve. And, they can predict what each other will do in a given situation. And so without having to explain things or coach each other, hey, you go do this or you go do that, it's very fun. Not that I know all the game, but to watch how they go about these games. Sometimes I'm standing in the periphery, just kind of watching and hearing them. And it makes me really smile. Because it is a community, they are good buds, and I was there when those big boys were teaching the little ones how to play.
And they do get out and exercise too.
Yeah,
walking
they do.
up and down hills and stuff.
Yeah, they absolutely do.
It's sort of a good balance anyway.
Yeah. And if you can, as a parent or a grandparent, if you can learn even just a little bit about that, or ask them, let them explain to you what they're doing, you know what, that's a point of connection. Where they live, that's what they're all about. That's where their area of expertise is. Like we can talk about the Hardy Boys and Nancy Drew back in our day and share our books with them. And my grandkids too, loved those books. And they loved the time that we spent together. But I think if you can do the reciprocal and be open to let them tell you about their entertainments and show you what's the objective of this game. Sometimes it's a good idea to do that just so that you can lay eyes on what the game is all about, and then you get to make your decision about whether that's good or not. Or you can celebrate their successes. I remember the boys every now and then needing to level up with games. And they would be coaching each other and helping each other. And sometimes that involved an awful long session online to get leveled up so that they could play maybe a new release of a game or something like that. And as long as you're keeping aware, and basically we used to talk about it every day. Hey, what's going on? How'd you do? That kind of thing while we were doing the dishes. It gave us a great point of contact, and I got to hear a lot of things. And I was always very proud of how they conducted themselves in a world that's often kind of without a lot of niceties. I think that's a good way to put it. And I was proud that they kind of tried to make things more polite, at least in their circles. and I like that. Or they pointed out who wasn't, and they didn't like that. So, I don't know.
Yeah, well, and you know, but it, like you said, very very many hours sometimes on that, and not so good if you're not having moved. And there was some concern there for a while. Heard some stories about people getting blood clots and stuff because it just didn't move for like days sometimes. So there is some danger to that, and you do need to exercise. I used to put out an idea, which was mostly tongue in cheek, but you know, you could think about it. And that was, we talked just a little bit earlier about some people go to the gym and you've got, you know, cycling machines there and you've got treadmills and stuff. And I said, you know, let's hook that up to generate power.
Yeah.
You know, as you're doing that, they're generating power. And then this would help the gamers too, right? They would have to be treadmilling while they were gaming, and they, you know, if they stopped, then that computer would turn off.
Well, even if they just had to do that for like 5 or 8 minutes, something like that, they had to do that hourly to bank up enough power for the rest of the hour. That is not a terrible idea. I like that idea. But I tell you, I do think somebody has done that there's a guy who has a gym, and you keep the lights on with those cycling machines.
Yeah, they don't care, but let the lights go out, who cares? But, you know, actually feed it back into the grid and you make money that way. So the people who are coming to your exercise club are paying you something for that, and then you're also getting some money from selling electricity.
Oh, you capitalist, you.
Yeah, but people are healthier for it.
Yes, this is true. No, I do think that balance is the key. I'm not going to criticize the gaming. I let my kids game. And I'm not going to be a huge proponent of spending all your life in the gym either, because I think that gets obsessive.
I know, but everything's a balance.
It's a balance.
You can't ignore any one side of the balance. And unfortunately, it is an issue with everybody on their tablets, computers, and, you know, mobile devices and all that.
No, I think
they're
awareness.
Just not getting enough exercise. And now more and more exercise science tells us that your body not only is it good for your muscles and your aerobic health, it also is generating some stuff inside your body chemistry that actually will help heal other issues and even mental health issues like anxiety and depression and all that.
Absolutely.
If you exercise, there's a really good book about that. There's a number of them actually, but some pretty recent studies and, you know, some sort of guidelines for and evidence, you know, evidence-based stuff that shows that this really makes a huge difference. And a lot of people who've been on meds and stuff can stop taking them.
Right.
So very interesting.
I think there's just so much new data that people can look at. You know, people's mothers were always saying, hey, you need to have a good diet, eat your vegetables, you know, go to bed on time, get proper rest. And it turns out that all of that is sage advice. And there's no getting around it. You might not like to hear it. You might not like to have to, you know, take your big hike every day. But you will be happy that you did. You will definitely feel benefit from doing it, whether you lose a few pounds or what. And in terms of diet, I mean, the more we're reading yesterday, and we've got to wrap up here pretty quick, but yesterday we talked about that colza oil, the organic oil that is the fancy form of canola oil. But we were doing more research on that and found out that leaching process that they use to extract that oil from the seeds, from rape seeds, that process isn't regulated as well as you would hope. You know, you might have thought that it was better regulated, but that there can remain some of those chemicals that they use to leach that out.
Yeah, hexane, it's called. That's the main thing that they use for that process. And they say, oh, but before we bottle it up and sell it to you, we take it all out. They can, you know what? Nothing is 100%. I'm quite sure there's stuff left in there, and sure enough.
So when you were reading, did you find out whether there's an acceptable level of hexane in your...
I don't think there's a standard. In fact, one of the articles I was reading said that what research there is on what harm may be happening to people who consume a lot of that's maybe, even if it's trace stuff that's left over, there's going to be at least trace stuff in there, right? Like I said, nothing's 100%. They said that the data that they've had is very much out of date now. Nobody has done an updated study. As far as I could determine, I could be wrong about this, but the Food and Drug Administration does not have a specific protocol for testing to see if really how much hexane is in there. And, there's no particular amount that I'm aware of from the fairly quick research that I did. But you have to figure, it's probably not good.
No, it probably isn't. And think about it. That's the kind of thing that goes into fryer oil. And so if you're thinking fryer oil, you got to be thinking French fries. And that is a huge industry, or a huge contributor to dietary problems. But there's nothing more wonderful than a wonderful batch of French fries. I will say, as far as RFK Jr. is concerned, I really, really have not enjoyed seeing the ripping apart of the health departments for the United States. I think that's way out of line, way too much, way too soon, and you don't know how all of this stuff works. And we're not going to sit here and pretend that you do, because you don't. However, that being said, I commend him for thinking that a very good place to start when you're talking about looking at the health of a nation is to take a look at the ingredients, the actual ingredients in the food that is available everywhere in grocery stores. And I commend that. I don't have a problem with that. All the dyes, all the other additives, I think go for it, It would be good if we didn't have to give up those foods altogether, but if you could find a safer, healthier alternative for some of those ingredients, go for it. I mean, what's wrong with that? Slow down on the other stuff because you don't have enough info to be, just ripping and tearing. That's never a good idea, ever. So,
with dodgy ingredients, though, it is a good idea. So hopefully that will...
He'll proceed. I hope so.
Hopefully that'll come to some fruition.
I know he had a bunch of meetings right off the bat with a bunch of the food manufacturers, the biggies. Had a big powwow with all of them, and they talked about getting rid of the dyes. That stuff is not in the food over here, and there's a lot of really delicious.
Much better, more regulated, and they don't have ingredients like that. So that's good. And then when you get in terms of the oil, if you get the virgin and the organic, then it's pretty much just the plant, and they warm it up a little bit, and then they squeeze it, and that's what you get. It's pretty much the whole natural thing.
And you can taste the difference. It has a really wonderful taste, and so we're still on that. We get on these kicks, I think. And it is fun. It's fun to experiment with things and learn more about things. We both enjoy doing research. We both enjoy trying new foods. Hey, speaking of new foods, and I'm going to close up here in just 1 second. How about those cherry cookies?
Oh, my gosh, I know. How about the cherries themselves?
Oh, the cherries this time of year are beautiful here, and they're everywhere. These cookies, think of vanilla wafer on the bottom with a layer of cherry jelly, and then a thin layer of white chocolate on the top. And then it had I think they were cherry-colored lines across the top, like little zigzags. Oh, fantastic.
I said it was kind of almost a sensual experience.
Oh, it was. They were wonderful. Anyway, we ate them all very quickly, and I got to get another box. Meanwhile, I'm going to say goodbye.
Yeah, we got to get ready for tomorrow, Freaky Friday the 13th.
Oh, boy, that's going to be a great one. Do we have any idea?
None.
Okay. All right. Bye, everybody. See you tomorrow.
Bye-bye.
Bye.